second episode of Who's Got the Ball. So we're back again, myself and Shane here for another episode to take you through what happened the last week in the NFL, NBA, and in the world of football. So what's the crack, Shane? How's it going?
Can't flying it yourself.
Good, man. Not too bad. Just the usual hectic week of sport.
Mm.
Lots to talk about.
They're
We're
all
both
hectic
at
weeks.
yeah, I know, honestly. Well, even in the summer, we're going to have some special stuff for you. So don't even think, lads, that when playoffs are done in NBA and NFL that we're going to rest. No, we have plenty lined up. So thanks to everybody who gave it a listen the first week, especially those of you who gave a comment on our review. That means a lot. We really appreciate it. So if you could keep those coming, that would be brilliant. Any support is really appreciated, and we just hope you enjoy it and hope we give you a reason to keep coming back. But myself and Shane were both at a couple of rugby games over the weekend. Shane, how was your weekend at the game?
Great weekend all round, bar the result, of course. But you know what? They got through. They got a tough draw now going away to Sad Rochelle, but I'm sure they'll. John,
Yeah,
it's all about getting there. Keep going, and just Northampton. It's
yeah,
a great city full of really, really good people. So I'd recommend it if anyone was looking for it. Not sure if there's much to do now, but I definitely
yeah,
recommend it as
nice.
somewhere to go.
Yeah, yeah, nice one. It's a nice away location, so that's all you want as an away fan to
Exactly.
feel like you're in a good location. But I was at the Leinster game then as well. So Shane was at the Munster match against Northampton, and I was at the Leinster game. So they're playing Bath. Tough enough first half, but got things turned around. Good atmosphere in the Aviva, and nice 2 points as well there. So can't complain. All in all, pretty good. Leinster got the top spot in the group and second seed overall. So be at home now until the end, hopefully, if it goes that far. So let's see what happens now. Harlequins in the next round, but that's just a little chat about the weekend. We won't dwell too long on the rugby because we have a lot of other sports that we're focusing on. So first of all, we're going to get into the NFL because playoff season is right here. We're down to the second last weekend of football, so we're going to go with that as our first topic this week. So I'll let you lead in, Shane. You had a player to chat about this week, so who have you got for us?
I think there was only one man I could have gone to after the weekend we saw, and it had to be Saquon Barkley. But everyone else was slipping
Yeah.
and sliding in the snow. He was running in 78-yard touchdowns. He was just incredible for the whole game. 105 yards total, two touchdowns, just ran the show from Dylan Hurst did a good bit of running now as well, which we were talking about last week, that if he was willing to use his feet again, that the Eagles would be hard to stop. But he didn't need to as much as
Yeah.
he did when Saquon Barkley was just running for fun. And even like after the season, he had 2,005 yards, 13 touchdowns across the season.
Yeah.
He's been the perfect foil for the whole season for Jalen Hurts and averaging 125 yards
Yeah.
a game. But just it's made a massive difference to Philly this year. He really has been. He's been what they needed, big time. Really, really, really needed really been what they needed.
Yeah. No, I think the way he settled into that team, like obviously there's no denying his talents when he was with the Giants, but people saying like, oh, why did the Giants let him go? Things like that. Of course, it would have been great to see him stay at the Giants, but he wouldn't have had this success at the Giants. Like the difference in O line and quarterback makes like such a huge difference to the ability of him in his game. Like I noted like a few games he had this season. This is total yards. No, not just rushing yards, so rushing and receiving in games this season. He's had games with 132, 116 twice, 156, 187, 199, 198, 302, 124, 150, 169. That is not going to happen with the Giants O line and plethora of quarterbacks that they were using. So look, sad to see him go as a Giants fan, but yeah, the argument that he should have stayed there and he would have performed and done anything for the Giants this season is just wrong. Like the team the Giants have is just miles off it. He stepped into a great team, a team that's ready to win and that needed someone like him. And, this weekend he had 232 total yards, 205 on the ground. Like, just insane. And what he did to the Rams already this season, and you think, maybe they'll try and stop
Mm.
him. They just could not stop him. And he was the winning of the game, especially after that Hurts injury.
Big time. That's the second touchdown he ran in when the Rams were just kind of getting a bit of momentum. They were up to getting their big stop and then they're being stopped. And then Barkley just goes and rips off 78 yards and just kills the game for him. Just absolutely incredible. And
Yeah.
across the whole season, what he's done, like if he had played that last regular season game, he'd definitely be broken the
Mm.
2,105-yard record. Like there's no doubt in anyone's
Oh,
mind that
but
he'd have
without
broken
a
that
doubt.
record. He's just been incredible. And even little
No.
things like there was a game during the season, I can't remember who it was against now, where he had a chance to break his own record for rushing yards in a game. And the coach asked him if he
Oh
wanted to go
yeah,
back
yeah,
in or give the other lads a run, and he straight away said, "Just give the other lads a run." Like it's a
yeah,
good sign he's not out there for himself this season. He's just been all about the team all
yeah,
season, knowing that something special could happen. And I think he's been.
yeah,
For me, he probably is MVP. He won't get it because it's all to the quarterback. But what he's done for the Eagles this season has just been out of this world. To be perfectly
yeah,
honest, I think.
yeah. He's just transformed them and kept them resilient. They didn't go through really the kind of patches that they went through the end of last season and into last year's playoffs. They kind of had him now to fall back on, which makes such a big difference. And that game that he didn't want to go for his own record was actually against the Giants. So I was thankful that he didn't go and do that to us.
That might have been why he didn't
I
go
don't know if
first.
that played in on his mind.
Mm.
Yeah. But yeah, I know I would have liked to see him break that record this season just for the whole, the history, and I really like him as a player, but I think he did want to go for it, and obviously the Eagles made the wise choice of not putting him out there with the risk of an injury. In the end, it turned out to work out. I actually didn't agree with it at the time. I thought, you know what, just go for it. If they end up losing that game and something goes wrong and they end up losing the first game in the playoffs, everyone will be like, well, it was for nothing. But now in hindsight, obviously it looks like the right thing to do. So good move by them, but yeah, just a dominant force, absolutely dominant, and one that the Commanders, I don't think the Commanders are going to be able to handle him. To be honest, I think with Hurts, the fact that he's questionable, we saw what the Commanders did the last time that Hurts went down, but even then, Kenny Pickett was kind of playing okay in that game because he had Barkley there, and the one thing the Commanders can't really do is defend against the run. So you saw what Gibbs did to them last week. You saw what's been happening all season. I just think that Barkley has that ability to drag this Eagles team over the line and possibly even to a Super Bowl. So yeah, I really like that pick of him as the player to talk about for this week because yeah, there's literally no better man to speak about.
He was just incredible from start to finish last week, and he could literally, as you said, he could fire the Eagles the whole way to winning the Super Bowl. He could put like him on his feet.
Yeah,
I don't see how many teams can stop him at the moment, but we'll see now on Sunday if the
no,
Commanders can keep it up. But
yeah, yeah,
unlikely.
no. I think yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they'll get I don't think they'll get the win, but a lot stranger things have happened. But yeah, Saquon Starman. Now let's look on the other side of the bracket. So in the AFC, I've gone actually with the Bills as my team to speak about this week. So we're kind of getting a bit of both sides here. Bills were a team that people thought this season they were gonna regress, and like it's easy to say now, oh, I thought that was wrong because we didn't have a platform to speak on it at the time. But I did think that was wrong because this team is a team. That's kind of such a stupid thing to say, but it's really important. Like they rally around the quarterback. They have an excellent head coach. They have a defense that fights hard. Yes, they kind of lost some veteran pieces on defense, but we've seen the progression of some of the other players that they have in there. The return of Damar Hamlin just boosting everybody. Just that ability of him being able to play again after what happened to him. Such a morale booster. But that's kind of all within the atmosphere and the vibes of the team. We've seen the videos they make, things like that. Everything looks great. But actually on the field, what they do, they're second in total points in the NFL in the regular season. They were first in sacks allowed. According to PFF, they had the fourth best O line this season. So against the blitz, they have the second lowest pressure rate allowed to the quarterback and second lowest sack rate and the lowest sack rate in the entire NFL across all plays this season. So when you're protecting a man like Josh Allen, it doesn't matter if you weren't 100% sure who the number one receiver is. If you're going to give him that time and he can use his legs and he can do what he wants to do, there's no wonder he's having an MVP caliber season.
100%. Like as you mentioned there about them not knowing who the first receiver is. I had a look, and so that his
Mm,
main target this season was Shakir. Like if you're getting to a Super
yeah,
Bowl and potentially winning a Super Bowl with Shakir as your number one wide receiver, it just goes to show how together the whole squad must be because they've no superstars
yeah,
in the wide receiver core. Even they brought in Amari Cooper and he's kind of just fallen to the wayside almost a little bit because they just have
Mm,
all their options are kind of under average, but together they're doing one hell of a job altogether, just making plays. Josh Allen making plays with his legs, with his arms. James Cook running for fun. I think I
yeah,
agree with you 100%. They are absolutely a team. They really are. They're probably the
yeah.
definition of a team of the four that are left.
Yeah, I think that James Cook is such an important part because now that he's taken that step up, and he's just having an absolute monster year, converting into the end zone first of all, which he wasn't doing as much previously, and the ability they have a very dynamic running back core, like with Ray Davis in there as well, and Johnson as well. Like these guys can receive also as well as run with the ball. Cook is more of a running back, typical running back, very hard to stop, very hard to take down. But the other guys there, ability to catch the ball too out of the backfield gives Allen extra choices as well as those receivers who have been performing kind of above what was expected. And then obviously when you have that O line, it makes a big difference. But on the other side of the ball, typically defenses that just rely on turnovers to be good, it's a bit iffy because they might allow a lot of yards, but then big turnovers change games. But it's worked for them this season. They have 18 forced fumbles and 16 interceptions on the season. So we're looking at interceptions coming from so many people. The most one player had was two, and that was spread across a number of people like Damar Hamlin, Terrell Bernard. A lot, like I think there was about 4 or 5 lads there that had two interceptions each. So in terms of forced fumbles, then we're looking at Oliver with three, so with three as well. And we haven't even mentioned AJ Epinesa, Razul Douglas, Taylor Rapp. It's just so many pieces on this defense. Now, some of them, you would say they're not stars, but together as one, they are a complete unit, the same as the offense, which is completely one of the most important parts of this team. Like Sean McDermott, what he's done with this defense is just absolutely amazing from the end of last season into this season when they had a lot of doubts. You saw how well Matt Milano played last week when he came back in, just commanding that defense. But Greg Rousseau stepping up, as I already mentioned with the forced fumbles, but in general, how much of a dominating force he's been this season. Yes, they do rely on interceptions, forced fumbles, big splash plays on defense, but it's worked for them. And if it's worked for them, why can't they keep that up for 2 more games and just take home the Lombardi?
Absolutely. And even like as much as it's praised in the defense there, the lack of turnovers by the offense across the whole season has been
Mm,
exceptional as well. The way they protect the ball, the way Josh Allen protects the ball when he has it, like you're going to win. You'll win more games than you lose if you're not turning the ball over. Like it was 0 turnovers last week. All
yeah,
four teams
yeah.
now. I know the four
They're
winning teams
just,
had no turnovers, but they are really,
yeah,
really good at protecting the ball when they have us and making plays.
yeah. It shows how important winning the turnover battle is in big games, like in the playoffs. Like, Josh Allen with 6 interceptions this season,
Mm.
least of his career, and also the least fumbles of his career with 5. And that was with 12 rushing touchdowns, so the second most he's ever had. You'd think maybe he'd have more fumbles if he's taking runs, but these runs that he has, he's just when he knows he can get there, he's not putting himself in harm's way. We knew how much he loved an interception when he came into the league, but that's all changed now. He's taking care of the ball, and things are just looking quite comfortable back there for him. So yeah, I said in an article I wrote kind of about I referenced it last week about the Chiefs, why I didn't think they would win this year, and the Bills were my pick then. And I was like kind of the end of November. I said I just think they can't go through the Bills. I kind of thought the Bills would end up with home advantage in this game, but I think either way, I still fancy them here. And yeah, I'm gonna link that article in the bio if you want to give it a read. So yeah, anything else you have on the Bills there before we move on?
I think trust he's shown this year in James Cook as well, where like he's not taking on as many runs as he was. Like he's not taking on, so he's not going from midfield trying to run 50 yards to get a touchdown. He trusts Cook more to hand it off and get the 10 yards, get the 11 yards, which I
Yeah,
think that has also shown in how James Cook has played this season as well. And I think the two of them and Shakir and the other wide receivers they have can all just go out and they can make plays against Kansas and we'll see where they end up.
yeah, no, definitely. I think I think it's going to be two great games this weekend, and we kind of covered all bases there with those and who we think are going to be, I suppose, the stars of the show. But moving on now, we're going to chat about the NBA. So last week you had the player to talk about, so this week I have the player. So I'll go first here. I've gone with Joel Embiid. Now, this is not going to be a very happy topic for myself because I'm a Sixers fan. You know, this season has just been absolutely horrendous in general for the Sixers, but all it's really done is shine a bigger light on how much of a hole Joel Embiid leaves in this team. With Embiid out there this season, okay, the record hasn't been great, but he hasn't been 100% when he's out there. It's been 7-6 with him. Then without him, it's been 8-21. And that has been the Sixers' level this year. 8 of 21 sounds generous. I'm not sure how we won 8 games without him because the play on that court is just horrendous. Truly awful. And it just shows the gap that he's left in this team. Like, just coming up on my phone today, like 1 year ago today was that 70-point game he had, record for him, and it was against Wemby in Wemby's first season. Such a big game. It's just like kind of showing Wemby what an NBA center can do with his strength, 18 rebounds as well. But like then to come into this season after the disappointment last year in the playoffs once again, another knee injury, you know, it's just, and I just think the way the Sixers have treated this situation is horrible. Like they completely botched this whole situation. They are not telling us as fans exactly what's happening. We're having to piece it together ourselves that clearly the man has a severe knee injury and he may never play like himself again because he can barely even train without there being swelling in his knee. They rushed him back last year from the injury twice, and both times he re-aggravated it. They let him then go play in the Olympics, and then he wasn't ready for the start of this season. They rushed him back in again when he wasn't ready to win a few games when we were on a downward spiral. And then he got injured again. Like, the Sixers could not have handled this worse. I'm just really sick of how they've handled the situation with him and how they're treating the fans on this one.
I do agree. I think it's flabbergasting that they keep rushing him back. When they saw, as you said, twice last year, they rushed him back and he went down again. Clearly, he needed a long
Yeah.
break. He probably shouldn't have went to the Olympics, but you can't tell someone, oh, you can't go and win a gold medal there in
Mm.
pretty much
Yeah.
the NBA All-Star team going up against the rest of the world. But like last season, he
Yeah.
only started 39 games, but he averaged
Yeah.
34.7 points in those 39 games, which it just goes to
Mhm.
show like the difference he does make when he's out there is just it's absolutely
Yeah.
unbelievable. And this year to be rushing him in and
Yeah.
out and kind of bringing him back for 2 games, then he's injured again, misses another six, but not saying
Mm.
anything. Just as you said, expecting the fans to just kind of like piece
Yeah.
it together themselves. It's not how you run any kind of a franchise with your star man. Like he's only 30. Like they could have his career over in the next 18 months if they keep going the way they're going with it. He could be retired before 32, which is probably when he should be looking at
Yeah.
reaching his
Without a
peak,
doubt.
really.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't know how they've managed to do this with the team they had. Like the trades they made, most of them make sense when Embiid's on the floor. You can see in the games he's played, things kind of work. The ball flows better. Everything goes through him. Maxi is more free. Paul George makes more sense. But none of it makes sense without Embiid. Like, and Drummond being injured too, then George is playing backup center. Like, this stuff doesn't work without Embiid. No wonder the Sixers have looked horrible
Mhm.
because they haven't had him. And when they did have him, they couldn't get any momentum with the team practicing like that and playing together in that way. So, it's just infuriating to be honest. And in terms of like what you said about how well he performed when he did play last year, if you look at his stats all time, like I know people would say, oh, you have to be available, you have to win rings, you have to do this. But in terms of sheer ability and ability to score the basketball, he's fourth all time ever in the NBA in career points per game. And he's first in points per 100 possessions ever in the NBA history.
That's
So
ridiculous.
this guy has absolutely unbelievable ability, but it's just really bad the way his career has gone, and it's quite sad to be honest.
I agree with you 100%. He is, when he's on the court and he's fit and healthy, he's borderline unstoppable at times. Like he was that 70
Yeah,
point game last year, he was literally just unstoppable. There was no point anyone going near him when he had the ball by the rim. But if they keep going, as I said, if they keep going the way they're going, they'll be looking for a new center in 2 years. big time, and
Yeah,
he'll be
and
the
that's
biggest loss you can ever imagine to that franchise.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's just sad for Sixers fans because we don't really know where we're going because if he's, we're relying on him to come back in there for things to look positive, and if he's not going to come back in anytime soon, there's no real hope there.
Mm.
And obviously, our pick could end up going to the Thunder. I don't know how they keep wrangling this stuff where your pick ends up going to them as soon as it's a good one, but of course, the one season we are horrible, they're going to get our picks. So yeah, not looking good, man. Moving on to another absolute car crash. I think you've gone for the Nets to talk about
I
this week,
have.
have you?
I've gone for the Nets, but I think we might enjoy this one a bit more than we did Joel Embiid talk. I honestly, I can't believe how much of a disaster the Nets have made of the last 2 or 3 years. Like they started the season 14-30.
Yeah,
They're 1-9 in their last 10 and they're on a 4-game losing run. The trades they made for James Harden to try and build that super team with himself, Durant, and Irving, giving the Rockets four first
yeah,
rounds and another four first round protected draft picks. And then they ended up trading Harden away to bring in Ben Simmons, who has since been injured for the last 15 years. Like I can't get over. They were right there at the top.
injured, yeah.
Yeah, injured exactly. They were right there at the top. They were looking strong, looking good, and they've now sacrificed their future, and they've nothing to show for it.
Yeah,
Absolutely nothing. It's just I think it's hilarious. To be perfectly honest with you, like
yeah.
since Simmons
It's
went there in the last 2 years, he's only averaged 25 minutes a game and 6.5 points a game. Like you were bringing him in
yeah,
to be like the star of the show, and he furthest thing from the star of a show,
yeah.
maybe the star of a circus.
Well, like, I think that him coming in, like, I think he gets an absolute horrible time. I liked him when he started in the Sixers, and he deserves for all the crap that these 5 a year with the Ben Simmons workout tapes, and he's shooting with nobody near him. I'd say it's probably 20 attempts it took him to get 1 3, and like this thing every year, it's comical, but he's actually the kind of player that if he went to like a championship team and he was like just put his ego aside and he played from the bench as a playmaker, like he has the basketball IQ and the skills, but it's absolutely no good to the Nets. Like they literally cannot do anything right now. Like they're 29th in points per game, and that's 29th, second last, and that's kind of a common feature here. 29th in rebounds per game, 29th in steals per game, 29th in blocks per game, 29th in field goals made per game. The only thing they can do is shoot a few threes, and they just chuck them up. They have Johnson, who's a good piece. They need to trade him away. He
Mm.
probably will be traded away because he's a good spot up shooter. Cam Thomas just absolutely fires up shots whenever he can. And when they had Schroeder there as well, he was performing. They actually had to get rid of Schroeder and Finney Smith so they could tank because they were actually kind of playing a bit too well for their own liking when they had those two guys. So they're just like, no, 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 they're gone. Give us back D'Angelo Russell. We're losing games, and no better way to do it than have that man as your point guard.
Yeah, like if to the fact that they won 14 games and then they're like, okay, that's enough now. Probably need to stop there. We need to go and lose the next 20 and see where we are then. But like as you said, they've
Yeah,
traded away their good pieces. They have to trade away the rest of them because of the trade they did to get in
yeah,
James Harden, which they thought was automatically going to win them a ring. It was never
mm,
going to work. You can't you can't just bring in Galacticos and hope for the best. I know it worked back when Miami did it,
no,
but that was a long time ago. Teams are far more robust now to having, if you have three big shooters, it doesn't matter. The teams you're playing are going to have three big
yeah,
defenders. It doesn't work the way it did 10 or 15 years ago.
yeah. Well, defensive levels in the NBA are so high right now, and
Hmm.
team basketball is so important. Like you look at the Celtics, how they won last year, it was as a team. Also, the Thunder, how well they're playing right now. The year that the Nuggets won, okay, yes, all these teams have a star player, but they have a team more than anything. Going back to the points you made about the Bills, how important it is to just actually be a team and work together. But you can't just throw 3 stars together and think it's going to work. Now, of course, if Kevin Durant had a smaller shoe size, things might have went very differently that year against the Bucks. But
Mm.
look, that's neither here nor there. It didn't work out, and history is how it's went. And I think their season and them as a franchise currently was personified by their loss to the Clippers, 126-67 last week.
Mm.
That is just outrageous in
It's
this
embarrassing.
NBA where teams are scoring for fun. You think they would at least kind of put up a bit of a fight, but I think they didn't score more than 20 points in any of those quarters in that game. It's just horrendous, and I feel sorry for Nets fans right now, to be honest.
What you were saying as well there about when the Nuggets won it, all these teams had one star. Like you have one star and then you
Yeah.
have four workhorses. You can't get three stars in that aren't going to do the running. You can't have two people do the running of five. You can have four people do the running of five. You can't have two people doing the
Mm,
running of five at any time. It's never going to work. Not anymore, anyway.
yeah. Yeah. And I think that look at the Celtics last year, like they believed, that they have multiple stars there, but each one of their stars, like the top guys, they all fight like they're bench players looking for extra minutes. They fight so hard when they're on the court, and you can't sacrifice that ability to play as a team and work hard for just going for three big players and having absolutely nothing else, as we've seen with the Suns right now. And when Durant isn't on the floor, then they're just abysmal. So it's kind of a similar situation. It seems like KD always picks a bad spot to go to since he left the Warriors. But yeah, that's another point completely. But that's the Nets. Any other points on the Nets before we move on to our first game?
I hope they stay as bad as they are for another while because the Rockets, I'm pretty sure, still have a couple of their first round picks that we could use in the next couple of drafts to see if we can get that championship ring before I pass away. Other than that,
Yeah.
all good for me. Happy
No,
to
no,
move
no.
on.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That's a nice way to end it. So we're going on to our first game, which was very successful last week. So we had Gan Chance, which is no chance or without chance in Irish. So Shane, of course, predicted the Commanders to beat the Lions in his pick for this week, for last week, which was an absolute unreal pick. I doubted it at the time, and somehow it came in like unreal. Fair play, man. But just a highlight here for you guys again, if you want to know the way this goes. It's in the NFL and in the English Premier League. It's teams that are playing against other teams that are odds on the weekend. And then in the NBA, the odds won't be out for the weekend when we're recording. So we pick teams that have five less wins or more than five less wins than the team they're playing against. So we're picking underdogs here, guys. We're not picking teams that are expected to win. This is, and we're not like to get one right is good. To get two is absolutely brilliant, like what Shane did last week. So that's given that's given the point of this whole thing. Shane is currently 2-1 up, so he got two right last week, and I had one. So let's see how we can perform this week. And reminder that 5 points if you get all of them right, in 1 week. So let's see what you've gone for this week. Give us your picks.
I'm sticking with my Washington Commanders, despite what we were saying a couple of minutes ago. They're 2-1 this weekend. They're going to be on a high after last weekend. If they can kind of get into another shootout, there's no reason why Jalen Daniels can't put up another 40 odd points. And let's just see if
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkley can just trample all over him and see where it goes from there. But I think I have to stick with the Commanders again for this week after they did me so well last week. I do think it's only downhill from here for me, but we'll see anyway. So for my pick for the Premier League, I'm backing Everton to go away to Brighton and beat them.
Nice.
David Moyes' third game in charge. They've looked 100 times better since he's gone back in there. They were excellent for about 60 minutes
Yeah.
last week against Spurs, and they're 9-2 away to Brighton, which I think is a great price.
Yeah.
Brighton are very kind of up and down so far this season. They won during the week, so
Mm.
they could very easily lose again. And I could see Daniel Calvert-Lewin going on a bit of a run before he goes and stops scoring again for 16 games. But he might get a goal in three or four before he does that. And finally, I'm going to give you a
Yeah.
small bit of hope. The 76ers are going to beat the Cavaliers.
No, man.
Yeah, they're going to
Oh,
do
God,
it.
that's outrageous.
I'm
Okay,
telling you, they're going to beat the
man,
Cavaliers.
that's like okay, okay. I got that's a brave one because like what the Cavs have like 30 odd wins now and the Sixers have 15. So like
Yeah.
that's some pick, man. If that comes in, you'd have a crystal ball to be honest if that one comes in. But I'll go with mine. So I've gone with the other underdog for the week in the Bills. So they're playing the Chiefs, who are 10-13, so they are money on, and the Bills are 11-10. So according to the bookies, Bills have a better chance than the Commanders. So not as risky as you, but still within scope. I do back the Bills, and I think they'll get there. I think they'll get to the Super Bowl, and I do think they'll win it. Come back to next week now when it's a repeat of my Ipswich pick against Man City when the Chiefs have beaten them by 30 points. But hopefully not. Hopefully we get the win for the Bills there because we'd all like to see them in the Super Bowl.
Definitely.
Then in the Premier League, I've also gone for Everton, so nice little overlap there. We don't know who each other is going for, so bit of a funny that we both end up with the same one. I actually thought, David Moyes similar situation, and I thought that it could be a game where Everton kind of try to soak up the pressure. It's 1-1, 0-0 with a few minutes left, and they hit a counter-attacking goal because Brighton are very physical. They have a high fitness level. I think Everton will need to sit back, but Moyes is such a good manager. I could see them turning over Brighton there. And in my NBA pick, I've gone for the Spurs to beat the Pacers. So Spurs have 19 wins at the minute. Pacers have 24. Tyrese Halliburton is in and out with a hamstring injury. And I just fancy the Spurs to do it this weekend. It's at 5 p.m. on Saturday, so a nice time for an NBA game over here in Ireland to watch. Yeah, I fancy the Spurs this week to get a win and get themselves closer to 500 and back into that play-in mix. So yeah, those are our picks. Let's see how we get on this week. I need to earn a point back at least to catch up with Shane. So let's see how we go, and we'll update you on that again next week. So that's our first game for this episode. We're gonna get into our final sport for this episode. It's football. So we focus in here on the Premier League. As that was kind of what was on last week. There was no European games. Now there is currently some this week, so maybe we'll touch a bit of European football next week. We'll see how we go. Let's hear who you have gone for in the player to talk about.
So for my player, I'm going to talk about Bryan Mbeumo, but it's not going to be the reason you think I'm
Okay.
going to talk about Bryan Mbeumo. I'm a small bit
Okay.
of a Bryan Mbeumo skeptic. I don't think he's as good as he's shown this year.
How many times do you have to say Byran Mbeumo before you
Oh, yeah, how many?
stumble yourself
Yeah.
over big time?
Well, I'll just start saying Mbeumo from now on. I think he's
Kinder
the
Bueno. Let's talk about
yeah.
him this weekend.
He's outperforming himself massively
Go on.
this season, and I think he's a very good fit in the Brentford team. But it could be very like the Brighton team, where players have come out of that and gone to other clubs and just look distinctly average. His stats on the season, he has
Mm,
13 goals and an expected goals of 7.08. He has 10 goals off an
mm,
expected goals of 4.4 without penalties. Like that kind
okay.
of an overperformance, it's just not sustainable. Where you're over double your expected goals. It's just not sustainable at all. I think a lot of teams will be looking at him in the summer. Man City will be. Arsenal definitely need someone along the lines of him. But I could see them bringing him
Mm,
in and he just being another Kai Havertz or another Gabriel Jesus who just all of a sudden forgets how to score goals. A lot of his appearances are
okay.
kind of like he kind of flicks between the right wing and a striker. Most of his appearances have been as a striker, but he scores more goals and he plays off the right wing. And I think him and
Mm,
Wiss's partnership is incredible. But I think if you break it up one without the
mm,
other, I don't think they're as good as they look when they're together.
okay. Interesting. I can't say I agree with you to be honest, because I think I was surprised this man is only 25 years old. Like I feel like he's been around for a long time, and that's a factor for me here that he's kind of incrementally improving. Like we've seen guys skyrocket very quickly when they're young, but this guy's kind of gradually moved up. So he played for Troy in League
That's
Two, or um, I don't know what's two
League
in
Two.
French. League Deux. Yeah,
League Two. Yeah.
let's go with League Deux. Yeah. So he was there for a season. Then he went to Brentford, played pretty well in his first season in the Championship. There, he had 16 goals, and then kind of a little bit stable. Then he didn't go crazy. Everything was on a normal level. Stepped up into the Premier League, was quite good as kind of their secondary man, more of a right winger with Tony. And now I think he's kind of filled that gap. I know he was kind of unfortunate last season with injuries, but now this season he's really kicked on. So he has 13 goals and 3 assists in 22 games. He's fifth in the goals and assists table this season. Now, yes, he is overperforming his XG. You could point, this is another Chris Wood situation here where it's not sustainable. But I think it shows he does have a good strike of the ball. He has good technical skills, and I think as an inside forward, maybe, or a winger with that pace, I don't think you can kind of go wrong with somebody like him if the value is okay. I don't think he'll be worth whatever he does go for. I would agree with that, but I do think he's a good player, and I think he'll have a good career. But I kind of like the hype about him. I think he's building up nicely in his career, and I think yes, him and Wissa work very well together, but him and Tony work together too, and I think he'd work together with another striker if he kind of played off them, and had that little bit of a deeper role, but he has that pace in behind when you need it too. So different views on him there, but I do think he's an interesting player to talk about because you can look at it multiple different ways, and I didn't really expect your analysis of him there, to be
Like,
honest.
I don't think he's a bad player by any stretch of the imagination. Like he is clearly
No.
a good player, but I don't know if he is
Mm.
destined for that greatness level. I don't know if he is the kind of player that starts 32 games in a title winning season. Like I think he's the kind of player
Yeah.
that will settle on maybe 8 to 10 goals a season. That's absolutely fine if you're pushing for Champions League or pushing to kind of break into the European places. But if you're looking to try and go and win a league, you
Yeah.
need someone that's going to be getting 12 to 15, 15 to 20 goals. And I don't think he's ever going to be that
Mm.
man. I really don't.
I think the issue here is mostly that people are unrealistic nowadays, more so
Hmm.
than ever in the world of betting and fantasy sports being so big. Like people are like, oh, Mbeumo's got X amount of points this season. Fantastic, this is the guy. This guy is so good. Like if you're watching him on a level, of course he's an excellent player, but if you're actually watching his performance and not just looking at his fantasy points, you can see what level he's at and what level he's improved up to. And there is, of course, a cap there. He's not going to be a world beater, but I think he would fit in nicely to a system where he's not the main man, but he's a nice complement. And I think he is on the level of a Champions League team. I think he will be in a couple of years. But I don't think that the valuation of him will be meet what you get with him instantly. Because he will probably end up taking a step back in his first kind of attempt to play at that high level. So, I agree with the idea of your point, but I kind of think I'm probably a little bit higher on him than in general. But I think the problem in the overall sense is that people they don't have as much realistic expectations of players nowadays.
Hmm. I do agree with you in that sense that kind of people just, as you said, look at the sense at the fantasy stats and see, oh, he has 13 goals, he has 4 assists. But
Yeah.
it's when he makes that next step, can he be the small fish in the big pond instead of the big fish in the small pond? There's a lot of
Mm,
players who have struggled
yeah.
to make that kind of that jump from this into the smaller pond and swimming with the bigger fishes. We'll see how he gets on. I think he'll go this summer. I think he'll be upwards
Yeah.
of 60 million. And I don't think he's worth that valuation, but someone will pay it.
It's probably what's going to happen, but yeah, it's too much, I think. And let's see if he goes pond hopping. That's your analogy. And I like that analogy. It's just a nice one. So I'm going to go chat about my team now that I've picked for this week. So I've gone for Man City, a team that is possibly interested in him. The main reason I've gone for Man City is because I'm interested to hear what you have to say about if they can get on a run that is good enough to win the league from here. Because I am not sold on that yet because of how they've played this year. But I think a litmus test this weekend will be against Chelsea. It's a tougher game than they've played recently, obviously battering Ipswich at my expense. And before that, some confidence boosters against Salford and West Ham, battering those two teams as well. They haven't lost since the 21st of December against Villa. So it's about a month now. But, they did throw away a 2-0 lead that they had against Brentford, and they're playing PSG that's just kicking off as we record now. So this PSG game and then this Chelsea game are more of a litmus test for me to see what their ability is to break out of that rut they're in. Now, if you can throw money around, the way that they have, then obviously that's going to help things. If Marmoush goes through, which it looks like it will, the ability he adds, 26 games this year in the Bundesliga with 20 goals and 13 assists. Sorry, that's in all competitions, not the Bundesliga. I think it's 17 goals in the Bundesliga. Um, that's another guy. Where is he going to play in this team? What way is he going to fit in? Are they going to play him off to the right a little bit? Are they going to play him behind Haaland, with Haaland? They're probably not going to play him with Haaland. Why sell Julian Alvarez and then the next summer bring in a guy for 60 million, or the next window bring in a guy for 60 million who's kind of also a striker? Alvarez was such a good quality, such a good player, and I think they made a mistake by letting him go. And obviously they brought in the two centre backs who I'm going to be honest, I don't know a whole lot about Kushinov and Reyes from Lens and Palmeiras, around £30 million each. So there's some more options there. I know they love to play centre backs in kind of also in midfield and in the full back position. So Pep can never have enough centre backs, same as Arteta. But what do you think? Where are they going this season?
I don't think they're anywhere near to going on a run that's going to win them a league title this year. I think they don't look like Man City of the last couple of years. They look miles off it. I think Rodri has, like, I knew Rodri was going to be a big loss to him, but I didn't see him going on a run like this
Mm,
just because he isn't in there to hold the midfield together.
yeah,
I honestly, I don't see the vision. The players they've signed this January, the two centre backs and Marmoush, like, I honestly thought they'd go for a bit kind of more experienced options this January instead of signing two 20-year-olds and slightly overpaying for
yeah,
Marmoush. I'm pretty sure it's 80 million they're spending on him, not 60, which I think they're paying a
yeah,
premium to get him out in January because Frankfurt are pushing for the Champions League. I honestly, I don't get it. Um, but at the same time, they've been so bad, but they've actually only won one game less than Arsenal have across the season, which
mm,
when I saw that
yeah,
today, when I was looking this up, I think it's absolutely mad. Losing someone like Kyle Walker, I don't think it can be good, even though like he's been way down in his performances this season. It's another kind of leader gone out of the
yeah,
dressing room at a time where they're bringing in two more kids to try and fit into a system that they'll have never played before, at an intensity they'll have never played before. And Marmoush, it's a massive
yeah,
step up for him as well. The pressure he'll be under now, coming in for 80 million
yeah,
with 16 or 17 goals behind him, they'll be like, oh, he can get us 10 in the
yeah,
next 19. I
yeah,
honestly, I don't get it. I don't see where this run that everyone keeps talking about is coming from. I think people are kind of scarred by the past. I don't see him
yeah.
winning 10 or 12 games.
I think that them going on a run is yeah, it's probably based on people thinking, oh, they can repeat what they've done previously. But I think the legs in this team aren't there. Some of the players are older, and it's not the same City that we've seen in previous years. They're not, they're not playing to the same ability, of course, first of all. But secondly, things just don't seem to be clicking as well, and teams seem to know how to beat them a little bit more. Young teams like Brighton, Brentford, these type of physical teams that have a lot of athleticism are causing them problems. And I think, it's tough. It's tough for them to go to this. I'm sure a lot of their players and Pep as well just find it very tough in this situation, having been so good for so long. But I don't think with 12 points back, and then if you Liverpool win their game in hand, it'd be 15. I don't think they can get a good enough run going to win the league. But I just thought that'd be an interesting question to ask a fan of a team who's top of the table,
Mm.
kind of to gauge how much worry is in there.
I'm not worried about them at all, to be perfectly honest with you. I do still think they'll get top four, top five might be good enough. Like I do think they've enough about them to get ahead of some of the other teams that are ahead of them, but I don't think they'll be going near
Yeah.
Liverpool or Arsenal between now and the end of the season. I think a massive thing this season, you were saying there about
Okay.
the younger teams willing to have a go at them. It's almost like the fear factor
Mm,
is gone. Like at the start of the season, they had that fear factor. They battered Ipswich earlier in the season as well, and teams were like, "Oh, it's Man City
mm,
again." And it was once they lost one or two in a row, everyone was like, "Oh, they're vulnerable here to the chance to get at them." And teams
yeah.
weren't beaten going out onto the pitch. They weren't beaten at 1-0 down. They were losing games 2-1 from being 1-0 up. Just not something you saw very often. The Feyenoord game in the Champions League in
Yeah.
particular was a massive show of teams like, "Oh, we're 3-0 down, but it's not over." And I think if
Yeah.
they,
Yeah.
I think they need better signings than the one they're making if they want to get that fear factor back before the end of the season. And they're in trouble now again this
Yeah.
week because Rio Valladolid are accusing them of encouraging a player to break a contract so we can go to him for a cheaper price than they wanted to pay another centre back. I just saw it today.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
things like
Interesting.
this are just
There's
they
more
don't help
problems. Like,
themselves. Yeah, there's more problems and problems are piling up.
no,
It's
they.
another 18-year-old centre back they're trying to sign. Like I don't understand where they're
Yeah.
going with signings. They're not looking for a 25-year-old solid player who's been kind of
Do you
bouncing
think
around for
it's
a
a
while.
possibility that? Do you think it's a possibility that they're going for some younger talent because they're worried of what might happen with a points deduction? locking Holland in for what, like a 9.5 year
10 years,
contract.
yeah.
If they're
They've
worried of things falling down, is these younger signings a bit of a look to the future? I'm not
Well, I
sure.
didn't I didn't
It's a
think of it that
possibility
way.
though.
Yeah, I didn't think of it that way, to be honest. And you could be right there as well, where they're bringing in the lads that if they have to, they mightn't mind doing a season in the championship for Man City if they got a big
Yeah,
enough points
yeah,
deduction. Like, but I don't see like I think De Bruyne is going to go in the summer. They've lost Walker. I think there's
mm,
a massive rebuild coming. Nobody knows what Rodri's going to be like when he comes back. ACL tears are massive. Like and people come back and
yeah,
it's very rare they're the same players they were the game before they got the tear. So
yeah,
that's another big question mark over him. Gundogan would probably have to go.
yeah.
Kovacic, he's pushing on now. He's been good
Yeah,
this
he's not
season,
up
but
to it.
he's no like they have a massive, massive job in their hands coming into this summer, and we'll see how they get on.
Yeah, but it's interesting with their midfield is probably the biggest issue right now, and they
Mm,
haven't signed someone to replace or sit in there for now. So I don't know, like, what is this thing that are they trying to sign these centre backs so that they can push somebody else into midfield? I just don't know what Pep. It's kind of hard. It's hard to get inside what he's thinking
mm.
and what the idea is here. Could be that they're trying to get these young guys in for the future, and just in case something does happen, and that's another factor. Look, we don't know what's going to happen with that if they did get relegated. Obviously, I don't think it could be a direct just, oh, you're relegated, because the Football
EFL.
League and the Premier League are separate entities. Yeah, the EFL. So I think it'd have to be a massive point deduction that would then push them down. So I don't know where they're going from here. I don't think they're going to win the league, but I wouldn't be surprised if they started going on a run in the Champions League and just focusing on that just to bring a bit of something into the season. But it's hard to know there too. They definitely need to win at least one of their last two games. They're probably not going to make that top eight, so there's extra games for them as well. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with them, but an interesting topic and one we're going to watch play out over the rest of the season. Um,
Definitely,
so
yeah.
we've got a final um, game to play after we've just wrapped up our three sports topics. So we've got the power rankings for this week. So last week mine was the Cavs, Lions, Bills, Liverpool, Forest, and OKC. I've changed it up this week. I've gone with Liverpool on top, as you'll be happy to hear. I just think that win against Brentford was so important, and then last night their win to pretty much ensure their top spot. They just need one more point in the Champions League in the last game. They're probably going to feel the lesser team there. It's an easy enough game, isn't it? PSV,
PSV
is
away,
it?
yeah.
Yeah, I think you'll get a point there that you need at least, even with a weaker team. So they're top for me with how they're playing right now. I've moved the Bills up one spot, so they're second now after their win against the Ravens, who I thought, such a good team to play against and such a tough team to play against, and they beat them. It was a very tough game, and it did come down to drops, which we don't want to focus on things like that because it's not good for Andrews what happened or the Ravens in general. But such a big win that pushes them up a spot. I pushed up OKC from sixth to third because they beat the Cavs this week after losing to them previously, and they beat them quite handsomely as well. So I've actually pushed them up to third, and I've pushed the Cavs down to fourth because they're still, obviously, they've been unbelievable. One game doesn't change anything, but it just pushes OKC a little bit above them. For me in my power rankings, they're obviously my two NBA representatives. And then I've gone with the Chiefs in fifth. Just overall unbelievable season, and they're still taking on. It kind of pains me to put them in there, but I like them better than Eagles and Commanders to be putting in our power rankings in terms of their ability. Interesting two AFC teams I've got in there, but then last I've got Forest. So I still have Forest in there. They just dropped down a place. They didn't do anything to deserve to be dropped. They won their game, even though it's just about against Southampton, but they still won. They've still had a great season. So they are six for me. So that's my top six, and it's two from each sport, just for all of you, just to remind. So what have you gone with?
I'm actually quite close to yours this week, in a number of ways. So I also have Liverpool top. As you said, that win over
Yeah,
Brentford was just huge, getting the two late goals, and then Arsenal going out and
yeah,
dropping points against Villa. Just it's a four or 5 point swing was absolutely massive
yeah,
in the run for the title. I've kept the Cavs at second, and even though they did lose to
Yeah,
OKC, they're still they're having an incredible season, absolutely incredible. And I personally didn't see it coming at the start of the year. Maybe others did, but I didn't see
yeah,
this kind of run that they're on coming at the start of the season. I've the Bills in third.
yeah.
I do think
Oh,
they'll beat
cool.
Kansas this weekend. I think they'll get to that Super Bowl, and I think they will win it. I have the Rockets in fourth out of
Nice.
bias. I know they lost on Tuesday. They lost yesterday, but I think another one who I didn't see this kind of a season coming from. I thought they'd kind of improve incrementally from where they were last year and maybe push for a play-in
Yeah,
spot, but they're second now, absolutely flying along, should be getting a playoff
yeah.
spot straight in. I have the Commanders in fifth. I wanted to go one from
Oh,
each side. Just wanted one from each side.
cool. I like it.
Um, they kept me rolling last week, and they're going to keep me rolling again this week, maybe. And then I have
Yeah,
Forest in
yeah.
at sixth. I think Forest
Forest,
incredible.
nice.
Murillo is after signing a new contract today till 2029, which is massive from as well, kind of holding on to
Huge, huge for them.
the core of their team. And I didn't think
Yeah,
they were worthy of dropping out.
yeah. I like your rankings. I think it's pretty good. Similar enough. I think the Rockets are close for me as well. They're definitely if we're doing a top 10, they'd be in there.
Hmm.
So I think your Rockets pick have gone the same as where they were last week. I like that you've kind of put in the Cavs now and dropped the Celtics out because I think the Cavs they did deserve that appreciation and that movement into the rankings for their overall season. And I like the Forest inclusion over Newcastle
Yeah,
because yeah, Newcastle were disappointing on the weekend and Forest have
extremely.
just been incredible. So yeah, I like it. I like it a lot and I like getting those Bills in there, dropping those Chiefs out. Yes.
I think it
Perfect.
shows that
I love
we're
it.
talking too much
So
during the week.
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I'm getting into your head about the Bills, but I'm going to wrap up with some other business. So last week you came with some extra business at the end that I didn't know about. That was to chat about Diaz playing up top for Liverpool. Now this week, my other business is Ben Johnson signing for the Bears as their head coach. So I think this is an excellent move. He's staying in the division, so he knows the teams are going to play the most. Importantly, he knows how the Lions are going to play. Obviously, they'll change with new coordinators. They're probably going to lose offensive and defensive coordinator, but that's a big move to be in the same division as the old team you're with. I just think Caleb Williams is just going to go straight up with this. He has that ability. We've seen it in college. We've seen some of the throws he made this season. If he just had somebody scheming for him properly and he had somebody to get his receivers to do something that was comfortable for him. Of course, he's going to figure out what's comfortable for Caleb, and I think this is such a big move for him more than anybody else. And I think it's a great move overall by the Lions or by the Bears franchise to take the Lions offensive coordinator here.
I think it's one of the smartest things they could have done. The amount of the points the Lions have
Yeah,
scored this season, some of the trick plays they pulled out, I think he's quite clearly a very, very capable man of making that step up. And I think, as you said about Caleb
yeah,
Williams, like we know the ability Caleb Williams has. The Bears just had the stupidest bunch of coaches and coordinators last season with some of the decision making that was going on there. I think this is a massive move for Caleb Williams, a massive move for the Bears. And as you said, staying in the division, like if he'll have books upon books upon books of everyone he's about to play. I just
yeah,
might be words
yeah.
to kill
No,
me now,
I
but
think
I don't see how it goes wrong.
here we go. Now it's going to crash and burn after that. But I think it's just purely positives here. Like, of course, he's an unproven as a head coach, but I think people say, "Oh, he's like a football nerd. He's not going to be a leader of men, whatever." I saw a speech he gave today after to the full facility, and he was incredibly well spoken, incredibly motivating, and I'm sure he motivated that offense. And he would have had to be a good motivator and a strong personality to work alongside Dan Campbell. So I think they couldn't have gone better here. You know how I felt about Eberflus. I thought, this guy should not have been in that position for as long as he was. And I called him getting sacked that game. He should have been sacked about 3 games before it. First time in Bears history they sacked a head coach during the season. and rightly so, because he was stinking the whole place up really with the things that were going on, and the way he was managing the clock in games was just, I just couldn't watch it. I just couldn't believe some of the things I was seeing. But yeah, not to be focusing on the negatives, but focusing on Ben Johnson to the Bears. Massive move, massive for Caleb Williams, massive for Chicago, and yeah, I really like it. So that's my other business for the week. That's pretty much all we have. That's covered NBA, NFL, football for the last week. Got our couple of games in. Let's see how we do this weekend with those predictions as well that we made. So hopefully you all enjoyed this episode. Give it a like, rate and review, subscribe on YouTube if you can. We'll be back again next week at the same time with another episode to chat about everything that went on the week before. Shane, it was a pleasure again, man.
As
We'll talk
always.
to you all again soon.
See you later, guys. Thanks so much.
See you later.